And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and this is episode 2 of what I'm considering an unofficial Rugby FCLA podcast for RFCLA fans and for fans of rugby in general. I'm going to release this one a little bit more to the public just to get people's attention, and hopefully if people are kind of on the fence about being a rugby fan or a rugby fan of RFCLA, they will check out the podcast and hopefully we'll win over some new fans. But for those of you who are already supporters of RFCLA, thank you very much. As you know, we have just celebrated our very first win of the season, an amazing victory over the two-time MLR champions, the Seattle Seawolves, down at Wallace Edinburgh Stadium, which you can see right behind me. It's a beautiful stadium on the campus of UCLA. It was a cold night, but the fans came out. It was our largest in attendance, according to RFCLA management. So thank you to all the fans who came out. But man, what a game on the pitch. 35-29 was the final score. RFCLA, kudos to Seattle. Seattle hasn't necessarily been playing the best so far this season, but boy, they had something to prove. It was a very physical game. For the very first time in 4 games of the season, RCLA was actually down at the half. Fortunately, a last-minute try by Rory Van Vugt right before the half kind of gave RFCLA some momentum. In the second half, Seattle started off pretty hot, a score by Rickard Hadding. It was his 43rd try in his MLR career, which makes him still second of all time, right behind Dylan the Butcher Fawcett. And then after that, it was pretty much all RFCLA. 5 tries total were scored. Jason Dom, Rory Van Vugt. In the second half, Andrew Coe, Declan Laney, and Ben Houston. Declan Laney and Ben Houston, those are the very first tries in their RFCLA history. Jason Dom and Andrew Coe, of course, have tied for second with the most tries in MLR and RFCLA history with 8 tries apiece, just a couple of tries behind Semi Kunatani. And then Rory Van Vugt with his try, that was his 3rd try of the season. Right now, he leads RFCLA with the most tries on the team. And then Christian Lealiafano was clutch off of the pitch, 5 for 5. He has yet to miss off of the pitch. He has 36 points in the season. He is the highest point scorer of the year. But going back, Rory Van Vugt, once again, that was his 3rd try that he scored in the game. He is leading RFCLA as the most try scorer of the team. And he was also our unofficial man of the match. Got a great interview with him right here.
All right, LA, I'm with the man of the match, Rory Van Vugt. We are here at Edinburgh Stadium. We just defeated the Seattle Seawolves 35-28, and it's all because I feel great portion is to Rory Van Vugt. Great effort, brother. Any words you want to say about this victory?
I don't know if I can take that to myself, but it's awesome to get that one tonight. It's been a tough start. We've been close. We've played some good rugby, then we've played some bad rugby. So to come out tonight, chase the game and then get in front and hold on. It's just such a good feeling. Unreal to be out here with the boys, and definitely a whole team effort on that one.
And real quick, what do you feel was the difference in this game? Like you said, you played a lot of tough games, and unfortunately on the wrong end of some calls. What was the difference in this game?
I think we've grown each week. We're taking the lessons each week. Here's the other man.
How good? Oh, definitely both.
Each week we've built, we've actually got our lessons each week. We take that, we've worked on it, and then we've got new lessons from that next game. And today we just managed to, have more positives than negatives, I guess I could say. So
there you go. Now, it's not an official game, but for the RFC fan club, I feel again, man of the match. We are officially giving Rory Van Vugt the man of the match.
I'll use this tonight, eh?
There you go. Yeah, take a shot. Cheers. Hey, congratulations. Thank you, brother. Great job.
So once again, I want to thank Rory Van Vugt and congratulations, the unofficial man of the match for that game against Seattle. Now, we are heading to week number 5 for the season. Week number 6 for the MLR season, the 5th game for RFCLA. We are now going over to the gold mine in New Orleans to take on the Nola Gold. A team that is the same record as us, RFCLA. They are also 1-3. So again, both teams desperate for a win. I fortunately had the opportunity to interview another try scorer from that game with Seattle, one Andrew Coe, who has been a phenomenal player and teammate of the RFCLA team ever since he's come on aboard last season. Has a lot of experience in MLR, has a lot of experience throughout his entire rugby career as a representative of his home country in Canada, not only in the Rugby World Cup, but also in the Olympics for the Sevens team. Andrew Coe spoke with me about his career in a separate interview, which you can check out on Rugby 411 YouTube channel. But on this segment, he talks about NOLA and what RFCLA has to do to prepare for the NOLA Gold. So now let's talk about the next game, New Orleans, going over there. As you mentioned, you're going to be hopping on a plane tomorrow morning, heading over to the Big Easy. NOLA, actually, same record as you guys. So similar spots, I feel, where this is a game you guys got to win. The season is young, but you can't let too many games slip before we start thinking about the playoffs. So I feel both teams desperate for a win. What is your early assessment, or if you don't mind revealing a little bit of what your guys' strategy maybe is, what is the mindset on how to approach NOLA?
Yeah, NOLA's a good team. They've got a lot of good players. They've had an insurgence of an investment last off season, so they've signed some very good players. There's some money going into that program, and they play a good style of footy as well. It's fun to watch them. It's nice to see some buddies over there. Cooper Coates has been doing
Cooper Coates is over there
real well over there. But yeah, just you talked about playing desperate, and I think that's how you win games in this league and beyond. Like, you need to play desperate, that you're desperate for a win, whether you're 1-3 like us or whether you're 4-0 or 0-4. You have to play desperate if you want to win rugby games. So yeah, it'll be an exciting one on the weekend down in the Swamp.
Any players on the other side? You mentioned Cooper Coates, fellow Canadian. I know Caden Duguid is also a young Canadian. Maybe you're familiar with being on the Canadian team. But, and there's a bunch of USA Eagles on that team as well. Cardi's over there, Luke Campbell, Paul Mullins. Anyone in NOLA in particular you're ready to see on the opposite side of the pitch?
It's got to be Ed Feed Out.
Ed.
I had some good. I love that guy. He's a good buddy of mine. Back in New York, we played together. We were on the wings together.
That's right. You guys are New Yorkers.
Yeah, we were New Yorkers together. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the game. We played against each other last year. Hopefully he's in this one. Although he's a handful. So
that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna then ask you, who do you not want to see on the opposite side of the pitch? I thought
he's probably both. He's both. He's someone I want to and don't want to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there traveling obviously has its own ups and downs, especially with the way traveling is here in America. Does that add more of a disadvantage to a team when they have to travel somewhere else to play away? Or are you guys accustomed to that enough, or it doesn't make a difference? What are the thoughts on that?
It depends where, how far you're going. There's a lot of short answer, yes. But every time you go somewhere else, people are more accustomed to it. You're accustomed to the pitch. If you look at, going up to Seattle, that field is tiny. That feels like half the size of a regular field, right? So you have to adjust your game plan accordingly. If you look at, we went down to San Diego last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. That's a tough place to play in. It's loud. They have great fans. They definitely get a home field boost, which is nice. Swamp is a place that's a tough place to play. It's humid, it's hot, it's you'll be hanging on by a thread in games like that, especially if you play a fast-paced game. So there are advantages to home teams, travel included, but you make the best of it. Sometimes it's fun to play in those games.
And again, I want to thank Andrew Coe for his time. A lot of great insight. Again, traveling over to Louisiana, the humidity, everything's going to play into a factor into this game. But it seems like Coe and probably the rest of the RFCLA squad is not afraid of the situation that they are going to get into as they go to the Big Easy. Let's pull up the NOLA roster and let's talk about the team. So there's a NOLA roster, a couple of changes of the roster, the starting 15, which is interesting from the group that unfortunately lost a heartbreaker to the reigning defending two-time MLR champions in New England Free Jacks. If you didn't see the game, NOLA was actually up with just a couple minutes left in the game. They had the ball. Luke Carty, who is an Eagles cap, former LA Giltinis player, phenomenal talent, very clutch, unfortunately made a very costly mistake. Instead of kicking the ball to touch, he actually kicked it out of bounds. That caused a turnover to give the ball back to New England, and that pretty much sealed the deal because moments later, New England was able to score the winning try. Now, I don't know if that means anything. Luke Carty recently just joined the NOLA staff from Chicago Hounds. He is technically maybe not supposed to be the starter for NOLA as the fly half, but he is not on the starting roster. As you see, he's actually the number 22, so he's a reserve. Coming in for the very first time as a starter is the normal fly half from last year, Reese Botha, who also too is a national player as well. Very, very talented. He is going to be at the number 10 spot. So again, I don't know if that reading into much. Reese was not playing at the beginning of the season. This is his first start for NOLA. Might have been just the way that it's supposed to be. And Luke Carty was just there to kind of warm up the spot for Reese before his eventual return, where Reese is now starting. A lot of dangerous players on this team, a lot of experience, of course. Number 5, Cam Dolan, who was at one time a team captain for the USA Eagles. And of course, Luke Campbell, also another capped USA Eagle, former captain as well. So a lot of talent there, but the guys that you really got to watch out for, as before mentioned by Andrew Coe, the danger man, definitely the winger number 11, Ed Fideau. One season, I believe it was 2 seasons ago, 2023 was, or 2022 was when Ed Fideau had the most tries in the season for all Major League Rugby. So definitely a dangerous guy to watch out for. And then, of course, you also have his other winger, Xavier Mignot, who is a French player. This is his first year in Major League Rugby. He's already scored 2 tries in the season. And then, again, another person that Andrew Coe is very well familiar with, a Canadian player, Cooper Coates at the fullback position, number 15. He's also scored 2 tries in the season. And then the guy who I felt was kind of the unofficial rookie of the year last season is the captain at the number 7 spot, Jonah Ma'u. Also has scored 2 tries. So NOLA is not an easy team, not a pushover, despite what their record shows. Very similar to RFCLA, I feel. Definitely it's going to be an exciting and very hard-hitting game. But I feel LA is up for it, especially if they play the way that they played against Seattle. So let's now bring up the LA squad. And there you go. So there's a couple of changes for the LA squad because unfortunately there's been a few injuries. At the number 1 spot, we have Alessandro Henny coming in for a hurt Dane Zander. And then unfortunately at the number 13 and 14, Nick Chan is out, and so is Christian Dyer. From what I understand, Dyer unfortunately injured. So in steps in Seth Purdy at number 14, which is great because Seth is a very young, talented player. And then another young, talented player, Matthias Jensen, Australian player, replacing his fellow Australian teammate Nick Chan. This is the first time that Matthias is starting since week 1, where actually he was voted as the MLR's first 15 in that position. So very, very talented player. Great to have him back on the roster. Otherwise, it's very similar to the roster that played against Seattle, a very good group. The reserves, though, we got to mention that Semi Kunatani is back on the reserves after not being on the roster on the 23 man roster last week, and then Will Leonard also joins the reserve at the 23. I do want to give a shout out to Franco Vandenberg, who just got picked up, signed former South African rugby player, now here in Major League Rugby. He suited up for the very first time last week. I thought he did a great job coming off the bench, so it's great to see him back there as well. So, yep, it's going to be a very exciting game. Again, if LA can play the way they played against Seattle, hard-hitting, great defense. I forgot to mention in the Seattle game, LA's defense really played a big part in it. Seattle had 2 chances of literally being there on the try line to score. LA's defense prevented that. We talk about the Seattle seawall, and that was very prevalent there. Even in LA, Seattle's defense really came to play, but LA's defense, I felt, was a lot stronger. If we can play like that against NOLA, and as I mentioned, lots of NOLA players that have already scored tries. They're an offensive, high offensive team, just like LA is. It's really going to depend on what defense shows up and which defense doesn't break. And I feel that will be the goal for LA. Also, of course, too, is the penalties and yellow cards. Unfortunately, LA is still tied with Chicago for the highest number of cards given. 2 red cards, 7 yellows. We got 2 yellow cards in the game against Seattle. Fortunately, one of them was literally at the last minute, so that really didn't play a factor. But definitely, we got to curb those those cards. We are tied, as I mentioned before, with Chicago. The difference is Chicago has played 1 more game than LA has. So, again, we got to make sure that this kind of changes if at all possible. And then, of course, if you're not in town in NOLA and the Big Easy to watch the game, highly recommend come out for the watch party at Tower 12 in Hermosa Pier. It is not too far from where we watched all the away games last season on that Hermosa Beach area. So Tower 12, meet the players that meet the non-23 players that are traveling with the team. That will be all there. They'll be there to meet and greet, give autographs, take selfies, chat. Everybody's great on the team. Come out for some food. Obviously, there's going to be discounts for RFCLA fans for food and drink at Tower 12, but a great time to come and watch and cheer on your RFCLA team. And of course, don't forget, we do have our next home game next Saturday against Old Glory DC. It will be Saturday, March 29th, back at the Wallace Annenberg Stadium. Tickets for that, check out rugbyfcla.com for tickets. Please come out. Again, last week against Seattle was the biggest attended game we've had so far at the Wallace Annenberg Stadium. The crowd was amazing. It was really fun. I don't think you can find any more fun for a 2-hour spot than an RFCLA game. So come on out, enjoy, root on your boys as we take on Old Glory DC. Once again, March 29th at the Wallace Annenberg Stadium at UCLA campus. Tickets again available, rugbyfcla.com. And that's my podcast. Thank you very much for checking us out. Hope to see you on the game. Thank you very much for checking out my videos, and I'll see you on the pitch. Go RFCLA!